Okay, so last time on Taurus Trophy, we did the first part of the junior section in challenge mode, and we technically did the BMW bikes to start the junior section, because we only have 3 of those. And well, before my previous attempt at recording was thwarted for a few reasons, I changed my initial design. I think it looked, if I can find it, I think it looked something like this, was it? I don't remember which one it was originally, but either way, I did have an original design. I think it looked something like this. Yeah, this was probably what the original design was. But I changed this up. I changed over from a plain white helmet over to a pink and stylish helmet, and I changed the gloves over to these ones, and I also put on a leather jacket, because I figured why not. Lewis Leathers, baby. And I also switched over to the Polyphony jeans, because I figured that works. And I also switched over to these boots as well. I figure since the junior bikes are mostly street bikes, I might as well switch over to this outfit. Of course, the game already saved the changes I made before, but, well, I feel like since this is the actual attempt of the playthrough now, you more or less get the idea of what my original outfit was. I might consider changing that again before the end of this, but anyway. Let's now head over to Honda for part 2 of the junior section, where we have a total of 7 bikes to get here, including 2 racing bikes. But we will start this off with the Honda NS 400R, and where we begin at Grand Valley. And before we get on with this, I'll just have to mute the mic for a second and give myself a sip of water. And so here we go. And we have 2 laps to catch up to our opponent, who is ironically another Honda NS 400R. Which means that, for want of a better phrase, I reckon it's going to be pretty easy for me to catch up to the leader, because why not? And keeping it tight, also keeping it stable, and the gap is only 6 seconds, so I reckon I'll catch up to my opponent by the time we probably get up to the bridge. That's most likely where I think I'm going to catch up to him, I would assume, as the gap is now down to, I'd say, about 3 seconds. So I think it's fair to say I'm definitely closing in. And as I predicted, heading through, I think this is the 2nd tunnel, and just as I would have guessed, I pass him heading over the bridge, and into Tunnel 3, with the overhead views of the mountains. And all that took me was 1 minute and 35 seconds to get the first bike. Now we have to get to the other 7. So let's do that. 1 bike is down, and we still have another 6 bikes to go. This is our first one. The Honda NS 400R from 1985. And it is tricoloured. I would assume it's supposed to be red, blue and white. And also with a little bit of yellow on the sides. Anyway, on now to bike number 2. The Honda CB1300 Super Boldor. And we have 2 colour schemes for this one. And by this time we are at Laguna Seca for bike number 2. And where we have got 3 laps to catch our opponent this time, compared to the 2 laps we had before. And where our opponent is a Yamaha XJR 1300. Let's see how we go. As we head into the Andretti hairpin, and as I would have guessed, I immediately overshoot, but I somehow don't fail. And this bike is definitely heavy. Powerful, but heavy. And we'll see if we can actually catch up to our opponent without overshooting too many of these corners. As the gap is now down to 5 seconds. So we are moving forwards as we head up the hill into Corkscrew. And shifting down to first gear, giving a little bit of a lift as I head down through Corkscrew. And now just 2 seconds behind, so I reckon I'll probably catch him by the end of the lap. And round the outside. That was a little bit risky, but I did manage to get it pulled off. And just like that, I have 2 bikes from the junior class of Honda. And now, I just have to do this again, but do it with the black and silver livery. Well, black and silver scheme, I should say. This will lessen as we go further and further along, where we're basically just focusing on getting the racing bike schemes, and where during that time we will technically be dealing with one paint scheme for most of the racing bikes. But anyway, we've got one colour scheme, now let's go and retrieve the other colour scheme. And not going to waste any time introducing my opponent, because personally I don't need to. And I still overshoot the Andretti hairpin. I probably should have looked at a course map of this course to identify each of these corners, but unfortunately I have not done that. Maybe I'll do it at some point, but nonetheless, no one really seems to complain about it, so, well, I'll either choose to do it or I won't do it. That's just the way my mindset works. And once again, closing in on the Yamaha that is up ahead of me. And a little bit of a lift there on the exit of Corkscrew. I know that if I get it wrong, then I will technically fall off the bike because of how much undulation there is on the corner exit. But as I get through the corner, it looks like I'm going to get this before the end of the lap, and I do. With a time of 1 minute 29.8, and as a result of my rider going off into the sand as well as the grass, I fall off, which probably does not surprise me. But either way, there we go. The Honda CB1300 Super Bol d'Or is now ours. And at the moment, I'd say we're doing pretty well. And now I already have a replay saved. So let's move on to our next bike in line, whichever one that may be. Hopefully it will not take me too long to get it. But either way, we got the other CB1300. And now, we just have to go after the other 5 bikes. Starting with the Honda CBR 1100 XX. And we have 2 colours to get this bike in. We've got black and we've got silver. And once again we are at Grand Valley. Let's see how we do. And let's see how fast we can do it. So we're both pretty much the same bike. I'm also pretty sure I did technically ride this bike when I did the fucking super license test at Grand Valley, when I basically had to do the full lap, and this was ironically the bike that I used to pretty much get the test on the gold first try, because, well, the super license tests are relatively easy to gold altogether for most of them. If you really do understand how the bikes maneuver themselves, and also how to more or less give and not give too much of the throttle input, then you'll pretty much know that a majority of the license tests in Taurus Trophy, they're probably some of the easiest in the GT series overall. Aside from nearly every license test in Gran Turismo 6. Which I would also argue has plenty of easy tests to get the gold with as well, in my opinion. But either way, we have got the Honda CBR 1100 XX. And now we just have to get this bike again in silver. So, without further ado, let's go and get the other one. Because we can. So, this is the bike we win. And now we must get the other one, which is in silver. Not wasting any of your time, we're just gonna basically mosey along and just get both of our respective colour schemes. And we pretty much have to do the same thing again. As ever, I never do consider myself to be someone who likes to chase records because, well, personally, I don't really give a shit about records. As long as I eventually win every bike in the game, which is more or less what I will do, then personally, I don't really give a shit about setting any records, because I can assure you that's one thing I am not made for. I'm not the sort of person who is, quite honestly, stupid enough to go chasing after records when it doesn't really need to. And through the tunnel, and on the power, and it looks like I am going to get this bike with relative ease, and I do. I get it right before we enter the third tunnel, which is cool. And that is now 3 bikes down, and we still have 4 to go. And I think we're still winning road bikes at the moment, so another Honda is ours, and everything else, yada yada yada. Okay, so that's now 3 bikes down, and we still have another 4 to go. Beginning with the Honda VFR, and then we have the Honda CBR 1000 RR. And back at Grand Valley once again, and where this time we are going after the Honda VFR. And where our opponent is a Yamaha TDM 900. I really hope I can get this bike. Well, it was going well until I forgot I was basically too deep with my dick into the hairpin. And basically, once I was about to exit the hairpin, I forgot to pull up. How did I save the bike? I have no idea how I did it, but I somehow saved it. When, under most circumstances, I'm pretty sure a mistake of that sort would have most likely failed me. But, thankfully, I did get spared the same mistake twice. Well, it wasn't exactly the same mistake, but fate spared me what probably would have been a second fail if I didn't manage to save it right at the last second. But either way, the Honda is still running good. And I am closing in on my opponent. And onto the bridge we go. And now entering the third tunnel. This is going to be where I score bike number 4. And I figured I might as well lift because I knew my opponent wasn't going to catch me. I basically just went along with it and, well, just held fire. And ironically, that is eventually what I did. Well, not going to be the first. Well, certainly isn't the first time I failed during a challenge mode mission, and I can also guarantee it will not be the last. But either way, we have got one colour scheme of the Honda VFR, and now we have to go and get the other colour scheme. And where hopefully this time around I can manage to pass with flying colours. And by that, well, I technically mean pass the test first time, unlike last time. I think that's the point I'm trying to get across, but we'll wait and see. Anyway, I figured under the circumstances it was at least worth it for me to, well, pretty much diversify my playthrough a bit more by giving myself just, you know, enough customization to convince you in saying that I am very much letting fucking variety and shit be the spice of life. And I figured since, you know, I'm going to be riding a lot of bikes in this game, it was at least worth it for me to just consider kicking it up a notch with the customization because of all the riding gear I have. I know most of it is not going to make the final cut, but either way, it doesn't really matter because, well, I'm just here to, more or less, give myself an appearance that, well, pretty much protrudes me. I think I just saw a fly up there, but either way, doesn't matter, bike is ours. And pretty much coasting there right at the end because, well, that was pretty much when I knew I'd won. So, you know, figured I'd do that. But either way, there we go. The Honda VFR is now ours. And we now have just 3 bikes to go, as our next one is the Honda CBR 1000 RR. As what is bike number 5 of the junior bikes in challenge mode. And we've got 3 colours to get this thing in. Pearl Fadeless White, winning red, and Candy Tahitian Blue. And where this time we are now heading to Deep Forest for this bike. I am convinced in saying we can get it, as our opponent is the Yamaha YZF R1. We both pretty much have the same amount of horsepower, and it is fair to say that we both definitely have 1000cc engines on these bikes. So, I think it's fair to say this is no doubt going to be a battle of speed for the most part. Yeah, I figured I was not going to succeed in getting this bike first time. Because, well, to put it simply, this bike is fast, and I mean fast. In other words, probably fast enough to go, I think, above 180, which, for motorcycle speeds in this game, is pretty insane. Possibly even 190. Because I know that motorcycle horsepower, whilst it may be nowhere near as big as the amount of horsepower that you see in supercars and hypercars, for superbikes such as these, which is essentially what they are, the amount of horsepower they output, it normally does result in their top speeds being much faster than what you think they are. I would honestly say this Honda is probably capable of doing at least 200. But second time's the charm, as I score the bike in 1 minute and 24 seconds. Now we just have to do this again 2 more times, because of the other 2 colour schemes that this bike comes with. And then after this, I think it'll more or less be smooth sailing, because we just have 2 racing bikes to get, which, in all honesty, I think will be okay. So now we just have to do this again by acquiring the other 2 paint schemes. As this time we are going after winning red. And we are probably facing against the same bike again. And yes, we are. The Yamaha YZF R1. I figured it wasn't really worth it to upshift into 3rd gear through that corner. And unsurprisingly, this is my 2nd attempt of doing this. Because, well, since I am technically riding a superbike, it's pretty obvious to say that, under the circumstances, this is about as hard as you think it is. Because you just have so much power to tame, and you also have just so much speed as well. These really are some of the most powerful bikes in the game. But luckily, I do manage to succeed on my 2nd try. Again. Because, well, I'm not exactly good when it comes to taming superbikes, as I probably learned from my novice bike experience when I was obtaining fucking superbikes from Suzuki in the novice section. I think that was kind of what became the precursor to knowing just how fucking hard it really is to just try and get these things, but nonetheless, we got 2 of our 3 paint schemes, and now we just have to get the 3rd one. And then afterwards, we'll pretty much be smooth sailing with the 2 racing bikes we have. But yeah, going back to what I was saying before, I have actually ridden the Yamaha YZF R1 once before, because I rode it technically during my Midnight Club 2 playthrough, and I think it was during one of the City Race episodes when I actually rode the bike. At least I think that's when it was. But either way, the bike itself was definitely based off of a Yamaha. From when I looked at the Midnight Club fandom page for the bike that was based on that Yamaha. I think the name of the vehicle was called the Norris Sagi or something. It was something like that, but I don't really remember what the vehicle name was called because, well, I technically completed Midnight Club 2 months ago, so it's probably hard for me to remember because, well, either way, that's more or less when I technically rode that bike. According to the Midnight Club fandom page, on that specific bike I rode. I'm also pretty sure the character in that game who did actually ride that bike was called Zen. At least I believe that was his name. But nonetheless, I did still manage to get the bike anyway, and eventually, after getting my balls crushed a few times in Midnight Club 2's ludicrously hard career mode that really was ball-busting in every sense of the word, I eventually beat the game, and now we just have 2 bikes to go. By the way, Midnight Club 2 is still a good game. Even though it's controversial, I do still think it's a good game. Anyway, now on to the Honda NS 250R Racing Modify, where we are heading to Suzuka Circuit West to score this bike. So in other words, we're doing the section of Suzuka Circuit that contains both the hairpin and, ironically, the spoon corner. And we'll see how we go. So, gotta step on the brakes here. I haven't really driven the Suzuka Circuit West course in a playthrough of a video game up until now. At least I don't seem to recall doing that. But either way, it seems as though things are going well. And I am hopeful in saying I can keep things that way. As I'm closing in on the Yamaha, also got to step on the brakes here because, well, there is a chicane through that radius turn on the motorcycle course. And trying to see if I can look for a pass on my opponent. I go to the inside, plenty of room on the inside, and just like that, the NS 250R racing version is now mine. And since most racing bikes in this game only have one colour scheme anyway, this bike is most definitely mine, and I basically have nothing else to worry about, because I know the bike is mine to keep, and I will most likely keep it, as you might have guessed. And going along, of course, with my usual racing number, which is basically what I do all the time now. And also because, well, I just generally like the number 24. I think it works well with me, and no other colour schemes there. And now for our final junior bike from Honda, it is the NS 250R SE Racing Modify. And once again we are at Suzuka for claiming this bike. And where we are basically stepping 9 years into the future from where we were before. And where both of us are riding the same bike this time. I think my opponent in the previous one was riding a Yamaha, but this time I'm pretty sure I am most definitely riding... I'm pretty sure that both of us are most definitely riding Hondas here. And I think I probably undershot Dagner just a little bit there, but able to more or less get through the corner without any real kerfuffles. And now I am closing in on my opponent. And I would have guessed. And now I just have to figure out how to pass him. Which is probably not going to come until at least the straightaway. Because he pretty much does seem to have a firm grip on me. For now. But I will catch up to him before the end of the next lap. As we have 2 laps to go to make the pass. He's got a bit of a gap on me at the moment as we head through 130R, down the Spoon Straight, through 130R, and now up to these 2 90-degree corners, more or less. And looking for my pass, and there is the pass. As we now head through Dagner, I am holding on. And there we go. That was the junior section of challenge mode from Honda. Another 7 bikes are now well and truly ours. And, of course, with the single race events, I will be making sure to use as many racing bikes as possible. Because I know that most of the race events in this game are exclusively made for the racing bikes. Not the street bikes, unfortunately, but either way. Obviously putting on my racing number, as I always do. And there we go. That's the junior section from Honda, now done, in challenge mode. And I think that should move us closer to 25% if I'm not mistaken, but either way, there we go. That's all of them. And next up will be Kawasaki. Yeah, we'll do Kawasaki next. So, let's see how much further that moves us up. I think we were on 217 by... Wait, how many bikes were we on? Wait, how many bikes were we on before? I don't remember. Anyway. So these are some of the bikes we got, and there's also a few others along the way as well. I don't really care to find out where those are. Oh well, anyway. Here is our status now, as we are 22.2% complete with the game. So 2.8% away from reaching quarter distance. And our bike total has now moved up to 113. And next up will be the junior section in challenge mode of Kawasaki, coming in the next episode.